Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. The World Championship is officially over. Edward Gaming crowned champions yesterday. Big questions therefore being raised. What next? What in terms of roster changes? Which teams are potentially going to blow it up? Chet definitely says, no longer the coach of NRG, that roster shuffles will be starting right about now. Questioned as well on Leviathan, the #1 seed from the Americas, failed to win the tournament, as has been the case with the Americas teams over the last couple of seasons. Sacy with some defense for Aspas, who was getting some criticism after the tournament concluded, despite the fact that was still in many respects the player of the season. But Gen.G, of course, MVP by far of the tournament. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. These are your 3 champions of the year, starting of course with Sentinels at Masters Madrid, Gen.G won at Masters Shanghai, and Edward Gaming now the champions. Gen.G still, despite being the first Pacific team to win on that kind of level, couldn't get the job done at Champs. Of course, they fell out even earlier in the group stages this time around, and as a result, they were not there to make the run for the Pacific region, who now become the only region not to have won the World Championship, right? EMEA have done it, the Americas have done it a couple of times, and now China has done it as well. This I thought was pretty interesting here from Durka, because the Yoru clone, as it stands, does not trigger the Vise wall. So Vise has this wall where if an enemy passes through the wall then raises up behind them to effectively, it seems at least, to prevent them getting teammate support, at least visually. The Yoru clone actually doesn't trigger this, which is pretty interesting. Maybe intentional, maybe not. Turns out it is unintentional, and they will fix it in this patch. Edward Gaming win the World Championship, of course, and it was really nice to see, and really wholesome in many ways, to see some of the reactions here from the Paper X players, because they, of course, again, didn't have the tournament that they wanted here, but we saw this from Mindfreak and for many others, because these were like the only guys to properly be supporting the Chinese scene in some level in the practice side, right? If you guys aren't aware, when Edward were kind of struggling, they scrimmed for a few days against Paper X, and apparently that helped them a lot. Obviously, like the Simon change helped them to some degree as well, probably to a pretty mega degree, given the result they had here at this international event compared to what we've seen from them before. But like Mindfreak himself, he didn't even win, but he was like overcome by emotion here watching these guys lift the trophy. I thought it was so nice to see, and we even saw this, that Gen.G actually posted some conversations that he had with Mindfreak on the day of the grand finals, who was basically telling him, look, I know the feeling, obviously you're going to be nervous, but you know, just scream more if you win rounds to release the pressure, and if you're nervous and everything, don't think about the future, just imagine this is your last day playing Valorant, enjoy every second of it, and enjoy every second you're on the stage. And then obviously he was like, oh, I've got the, you know, the buff from Mindfreak or whatever. So I thought it was really cool to see like the friendship in between these guys, and we know that like they were helping each other out during the tournament, and you know, probably a crucial reason why Edward were going to be able to come as good as they did do was because of that kind of relationship and that scrim partnership they had with Paper X for a little while. Then obviously TENS gave them a lot of credit as well, making history for the Chinese Valorant scene. Heretics will be gutted, of course, about their results, but at the end of the day, the better team won over the course of the tournament, which was, you know, a surprise that it was Edward Gaming, right? I mean, like, I remember I was getting asked questions, like, people were wondering in the comments section, who do you think is going to win the tournament after the group stages? And I genuinely had no idea. Like, it was so difficult to call, and at that point, you know, I wanted to probably say Lev, to be honest, maybe Heretics, and because I wasn't sure that Sentinels were going to be able to make the run, I didn't have faith in Fnatic to make it all the way either, so, you know, I was thinking maybe Lev, maybe Heretics can probably do it, but I wasn't sure that Heretics were quite going to have enough, like, but Edward Gaming didn't really cross my mind as, like, a serious force until they started showing what they could do in the quarterfinals and onwards, right, you know, not losing, of course, a series there in the playoffs, as Derek says he was there in person, China #1, and it's obviously a pretty scary thing for the opposition. Some reaction as well I thought was pretty cool from some of the Sentinels guys, as you know, even Drew Spark says in the replies, we missed a banger. They were on the plane, and I'm guessing, you know, they didn't pay for the in-flight Wi-Fi or whatever to watch the series, so they just landed home and checked the website, and they saw that Gen.G dropped 111, his guy's up there with LeBron, so yeah, crazy tournament, crazy series, and just some cool stuff happening after the fact as well, with, as John QT says, what Boaster initially says, you're in a John QT stand competition, your opponent is me, you're gonna lose, and the same thing the other way around, right? So thought it was nice to see between these two guys. John QT isn't going anywhere from Sentinels, at least I would imagine, so there are questions on Boaster from Fnatic, right? This was the debate this season, and last season as well on some level. If Fnatic didn't win, if they didn't get the result they needed and wanted at the World Championship, certainly again, which was not the case this year, who's the first to go? They brought in Hero for Leo. They had their out-of-game circumstances, which was unfortunate. And as a result of that, they weren't necessarily able to field the roster that they wanted at Champs, certainly because, you know, Leo's got experience winning and being on that stage multiple times. Hero didn't. So on that level, it was unfortunate. But at the same time, Chronicle, Leo, Alpha, Durka, like, they all played really well. I mean, Hero as well played well. So that's always the question when it comes down to the in-game leader. We've seen this multiple times across multiple esports. If the IGL isn't dropping numbers, then at some point the players or the coaches or whatever think, well, you know, could we get someone in who's going to drop more numbers and still do a better job? I mean, like, the reality is that given the roster they've had, their results Fnatic at the last 2 years World Championship have not been anywhere near good enough, and, you know, not winning anything, not even getting close really to winning anything this year was unacceptable. So, you know, I personally think that Fnatic probably have to do something, and if they are going to do anything, it is probably Boaster that might find himself the odd man out. I don't want to see it, but you know, there's some debate on whether they should keep him or not right now. I think the community's probably relatively 50-50 split on it, but you know, everyone loves Boaster, so wishing the best for whatever happens there. But as Chet does say quite clearly, now roster shuffles begin. He is, well, head coach for nobody right now. He was head coach for NRG. They got rid of him. There's questions on who they might replace him with, whether it's going to be Potter, whether it's going to be somebody else entirely. So Chet also did say, I think in KT's Twitch chat the other day, that he's going to be sticking around in Valorant and not going to CS. So yeah, where he goes next is a question, but no, he's going to join somewhere and start to make some changes from the top. We are already seeing things start to leak through, such as this today from Laz, legendary player, and you know, in many ways like the tens of the Pacific region, I guess you could say. And yeah, they confirmed here today that Laz is going to be, you know, stepping away from his time in Valorant, and he still wants to stay as part of the Valorant scene. I kind of hope that he can become like the Mixwell maybe of that region, like the Japanese side. But you know, what a player. Watching him on the Chamber was great fun, and yeah, the World Championship is over and they've confirmed that Laz is, you know, going to be stepping away and retiring from competitive play. So wishing him the best, because, you know, great player, great team as well. Like, Zeta Division, always great fun to watch. Shame they couldn't really hit the heights that I think sometimes their talent deserved, and also their fans deserve, because we know the Japanese fans in multiple sports and esports are always right up there as some of the best. Nats also puts a tweet out as well, kind of just saying thanks to everyone and you know, looking forward to the future. But he also says news soon. So what does that mean? Is he going to stay on Liquid? Is he going to go? What's the future going to hold? Because Nats still on average was their better player this season for sure. Changes are necessary with lots of these teams. It's the reality of a league where you've got 40 plus teams and there are only so many teams that can even make it to the World Championship, let alone do well at the World Championship. So, you know, we're expecting lots of roster changes. I'm going to stay tuned for it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any of the updates. I'm sure there's going to be some spreadsheets flying around, whether they're real or whether they're not real. I'll do my best to sift through everything, but that's how it tends to work. The top teams will stick it out, so only the teams that won the event or were very close to, such as, let's say, your Edward Gaming's, your Team Heretics, but everyone from there on out is in the conversation to potentially make a move. But also some teams they won't have done yet, just because they'll be waiting, right? I mean, there were some big teams that bombed out early at the big tournaments, so therefore some of those players might potentially be available. Aspas, by the way, smashed through 1,000 kills, the only player in the history of champions to get through 1,000 kills in that, which was an incredible performance. And over the last couple of years, you know, first in 2022, third last year, and then third again this year as well. So, you know, I think there was talk about Aspas, certainly after the series that he had against Leviathan, or against Team Heretic, sorry, for Leviathan. But we know that in this series, Riens and obviously Miniboo really stepped up, and Aspas, surprisingly, didn't have a great series here by his usual standards. And obviously there was talk from Miniboo about, you know, diffing Aspas and all this, and it seems as kind of impossible to do that over the last couple of seasons. But, you know, it was possible here. Aspas's final couple of series in the tournament weren't great. It wasn't like his fault they lost in some way, but I'm sure that Aspas is looking at himself thinking, well, you know, if I played me how I normally played, then they would have, you know, potentially beaten Team Heretics here, made it to the final, potentially won the World Championship again. But we saw this from Sacy. I thought it was quite nice, really, of course. Brazilian counterparties team with it before when they won the World Championship back in 2022. Then he goes to Sentinels in 23. Aspas stays around one more year. Then he goes to Lev last off-season and creates that team into a potential super team that was the best performing America's team of the season, at least in terms of the World Championship results. Sentinels got very close. And Sentinels won an event, of course. The most successful America's team was Sentinels because they won an event over the season, but Lev at the end of the year were marginally the stronger. They got to top 3 in the end, and pretty much Sacy saying, look, I'm seeing all this nonsense on Twitter. I don't know how you've got the courage to say that Aspas is a popcorn maker. Now, popcorn maker is a translation from this word, which actually means in Brazilian, like, someone that chokes, so, or like chickens out. So he's kind of trying to translate it here, but it's, you know, I think the implication has been that Aspas pretty much, like, on the big stage didn't perform at his best. So, you know, Aspas was a popcorn maker was a pretty funny translation, really. But he's saying, look, that's not true. Talk about VLR ratings, creating a dispute between the players on the 2022 Loud team where they all played an essential role. They keep comparing numbers. You guys are crazy. Aspas is still the GOAT, basically, is kind of the thought process here. So I thought it was nice to see that kind of defense coming through in some ways for his former teammate and a player that's still going to be a crucial part of Valorant history from here on into the future. Even FNS comments on the World Championship result and saying, like, it took the greatest ever performance, at least in terms of kills in a grand final series, and the greatest player ever in order to take down Heretics. Head up for them, and you know, let's just look forward to the future. Congrats to Edward, very much well deserved. This, by the way, is the bracelet that the MVP, so Kang is going to win and is going to be able to wear. This, I think, is a pretty fire idea. We see this sometimes, MVPs getting certain rewards and awards, and it's certainly the case again for this tournament as well. So before we close out the video, we're going to talk more on roster stuff tomorrow, absolutely on that one, but these are the remaining events. So Ascension is coming up soon. EMEA, Americas, China and the Pacific, from the end of August, the 31st, until the 29th of September. There's basically the entire time going to be some sort of Ascension matches occurring to see which team from the various regions is actually going to make it. And then in November, that's the Game Changers World Championship, and then the season is getting underway again shortly after that. But in the next month or so, there are going to be some serious roster stuff to discuss, and congratulations to Com becoming, after this tournament, the highest earning Valorant player of all time. So very much into your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.